incredibly supportive of lowering the carbon footprint by 20% by encouraging people to look at energy efficiency, to look at efficient sourcing of power, and renewables. And a combination of those tends to give you the best and the most robust long-term solution. And if you go through the detail, what you can find is developers now are pretty much forced to invest in low-carbon solutions if they want to get planning permission. And what we need to do is find a way of mixing existing buildings and retrofitting those alongside the new developments that happen. And here are some examples of schemes that will be done elsewhere. Future developments, there's all sorts of stuff through the Energy White Paper that some of you will have seen. This is all happening at the moment. We've got planning white paper, and it's all about driving low carbon into the local authorities. And the thing that we need to make sure is that we don't just focus on new builds, which is what planning is all about, but we look for the opportunities to do the retrofits as well. The prize is much bigger there than just the new build. So there we are.
We're just running to fit.
Behind, so I think we'll move straight on to our expert panel. I'll just invite Graham Meeks to the stage, and Phil will invite you to join Graham. Could we have the rest of the panel join Graham on stage as well?
All the other members of the panel will make their way up here. I'd just like to introduce them. Joining us here are Gary Friedman, Head of Business for Ecotricity, and hopefully John Starr as well, from Solar Century, both highly innovative and progressive companies in their respective parts of the business. Ecotricity pioneered a sort of model of both power project development and sales to on-site to customers, putting wind turbines to work on customers' premises, as well as offering green supply contracts. Solar Century have been perhaps one of the leading lights in terms of developing the use of on-site renewables in the UK. Have an operation which is started both providing equipment and also developing major projects and selling to a large network of installers. Interestingly, we've also welcomed back Pete Bradshaw. One of the questions that was raised, I think, at the end of Pete's session was what does renewable energy contribute to the objectives of the club? Well, I'm a Reading Football Club supporter, and those of you who have travelled down the M4 will no doubt have spotted a large wind turbine, 2 megawatt turbine put up by Ecotricity just under 2 years ago. Since then, Reading Football Club have qualified for the Championship and narrowly avoided, or only narrowly missed qualification for the UEFA Cup. Now, I'm no expert, but draw your own conclusions. Right. Without any further ado, there's some questions to be raised, but I think this is really the best use of this session we have with these experts is to use them to answer the questions that you as an audience have. What I'd like to do, just to sort of make best use of the time, is to take questions in threes if we've got them. And please, when you're making your question, please introduce yourself with your name and your affiliation.
I actually had a question, if you don't mind, just from Phil's presentation. It was quite interesting in terms of community initiatives, and it sounds like there's a real need for infrastructure. And I wondered whether, on the company side of things, if you think there needs to be regulation or leadership from the government in order to adopt CHPA in their organizations.
I think we need leadership, but I think leadership in the form of direction rather than cash. And I'll explain why. Today, if you want to buy a gas meter or rights, really, of access. If you want to lay a heat network, you don't have any rights. So, as an enabler, in theory, you have to negotiate with everybody who's got ownership of a stretch of land that you want. Now, that is just so cumbersome. So I think setting the framework, and I think we are seeing some good initiatives from government, and I don't always support what they're doing, but I think they are trying to use planning to move things forward. They're also trying to encourage the establishment of energy service companies that will be facilitators for doing quite a lot of this work. So I think rather than cash, what we need is for them to think creatively about how they can set the agenda. And it can be simple things that make the big differences, but you've got to balance the urgency of action with the want of the individual to be consulted. I'll give you an example. In Denmark, where about 60% of their energy comes from district heating schemes, they simply set out 30 years ago and said, you can't build a new power station unless you use the waste heat. They said, we will not tolerate people just dumping heat into the atmosphere, into the rivers, etc. This is just inefficient and it's not right for the climate. Now, in today's terms, we kind of start to register with something like that. But 30 years ago, they were pretty much ahead of the pack. They also said, if there is a district network, you will be obliged to connect to it. Now what that did is enable them to go and invest in the infrastructure. The public sector is a huge area of buildings which tend to be pretty inefficient in terms of their energy, where local authorities could use those to actually create a backbone to build these systems. Now, they don't need to do the investment. What they need to do is to commit long term to take their heat from a network to enable commercial enterprises to actually facilitate.
Right. Right, we've got some questions coming. Gentleman there at the back.
Hello, my name is Eric Bichard from the National Centre for Business and Sustainability. Those of you who stay on to the end, and I very strongly advise you to do so. We'll see you a bit later with the panel, but I've got a question now. I'd just like Philip to continue his discourse on Copenhagen and invite the others to comment, because another big piece of this, I think I'm right in saying, is that this investment, which is so difficult to get out of the public sector in this country, a lot of that came from cooperatives. I'm right, aren't I? And the idea was that because people are always going to need heat, and it was an obligation to take the waste heat, why wouldn't you, if you were a bank, fall over yourselves to give groups of people a loan so that they could buy into the infrastructure and then reap low-cost heating for generations to come. We don't have that experience in this country, clubbing together. Now, obviously football clubs, all of them should be community enterprises. Sadly, not all of them are. That's an idea. And electricity, with Bay Wind as more or less our sole example, I think there's a couple more in the pipeline now. What do you think about encouraging more people to invest with your supervision to put more renewables up through cooperation?
Okay, thank you very much. And the lady just in front of you.
Heather Smith from the State Government of South Australia. My question has a similar theme. I would have put down one of the distinct differences between the UK and Denmark as being a cultural one, about people are used to owning their own heating systems and are not likely to move towards district heating in a hurry. And that moves towards the direction Solar Century are going, seeing an inherent appeal among consumers to be self-sufficient for energy, to generate their own electricity, putting up those big wind turbines so that sites can generate